was a beloved pastor using her gifts to help her congregation.
She is a healer. God has gifted her with that ability.
She's able to see things that a normal person wouldn't see. She can go deeper into the spirit than others can.
But a merciless attack destroys her home and leaves her clinging to life.
When first responders arrived, the house was fully engulfed in flames.
Stabbed 27 times, received countless burn injuries and wounds.
People were shocked. They couldn't believe it. Why would somebody want to do this?
To answer that question, investigators will expose the dark side of a seemingly devout couple and unearth secrets steeped in bitterness and black magic.
She knew spiritual work. You know what spiritual work is?
Both were so involved in this voodoo magic.
It just overtook any kind of rationality that either one of them may have had to start with.
And a survivor comes forward with a story of perseverance and faith.
A lot of people don't understand how I got up. It had to be God. It had to be God.
Baker County, Georgia is a friendly southern community where neighbors value the peace and quiet.
It's certainly a close-knit community. Everybody kind of knows everybody. Everyone kind of looks after each other for the most part. Crime is, for the most part, fairly limited.
But on the afternoon of Monday, April 24th, 2017, the sheriff's office receives a frantic call from 35-year-old resident Ramona Newton.
Okay, what's the problem? You went down with the fire? Yes.
Ramona Newton reported that the house that was next to her was on fire, and the police then find out that Ramona's next-door neighbor is her mother.
I explained to them that my mother's house was fire. I told them I heard a loud noise and ran out the door to see what was going on. And when I bit in that corner, that's when I seen nothing but flames.
Ramona fears that her 61-year-old mother and local spiritual leader, Georgia Green, is trapped inside the burning house.
Okay, we're getting this mess now, okay?
I ran around the house 2 or 3 times. My mama's voice. And when I turned around, she was laying down with her hand up. I could see, I seen blood. I seen a lot of blood. So I went and called 911 again.
I understand, okay? Who started the fire? I don't know. I know it come alive. My mama's house on fire. And my mama in the woods. I saw my mama in the woods.
A lifelong resident of Baker County, Georgia May Green grew up on a small farm in a large family.
My grandmother, she had 10 children. There was a lot of other families there in the communities, and the kids used to get together and play.
In her 20s, Georgia had 2 daughters, Rhonda and Ramona, who she raised on her own.
It was mostly just the 3 of us for a long time.
She raised 2 daughters on her own with no help. And I think she did a pretty good job by herself. She taught us how to cook, clean, everything that was necessary. We was raised by a strong woman.
Much of Georgia's strength and the strength of her family stemmed from her religious faith.
My mother was brought up in the church. Her religion, in fact, was number 1 in my mother's life. That's what she was all about.
Ever since I can remember, ever since I was little, we was in the church. And then when we moved out on our own, my mother continued to take us. And then she started wanting to participate, wanting to do more in the church. She started preaching in her living room. We would get up on Sunday morning, have Sunday school, and have church there in the living room. And we just had a nice little family church.
My mother was the type of person to welcome anyone to her church. It don't matter what religion you was. If you need help, you was welcome to come to the church.
Through the church, Georgia met her second husband, Luke Griffin.
He called himself a pastor also. And so they was married, and the little congregation continued to grow.
Georgia is not only a pastor, but she does marriage counseling and other types of spiritual counseling.
She calls herself a healer. A lot of people come to her for healing, and they come for her for counseling.
She actually had a place in her home specifically laid out to do these counseling services. She had candles and incense burning, all sorts of things to kind of...
Congregation became an extended family, but her relationship with her husband, Luke, began to falter.
They got divorced probably around 2004.
Luke moved out of the house he shared with Georgia, but he didn't go far.
He loved so much, he didn't even leave off the land. He stayed right there.
He built himself a little house out there for himself, and he lived out there on the property. I moved my house there too, and my sister later on bought a house and moved there. All the houses are close together.
The land surrounding Georgia's home became a safe haven filled with family and friends. Until the morning of April 24th, 2017, when the pastor is found stabbed multiple times outside her burning home. As Georgia's daughter Ramona speaks to 911 dispatchers, family and friends begin gathering in the front yard of Georgia's house.
She finds her husband, Brad, her mom's ex-husband, Luke, and then she also finds Lenoris and Kim Williams at the house.
Ramona immediately yells for the group to help her move Georgia to safety.
She called for help, and Brad and Luke came running.
We didn't have no time, because how she was breathing, I knew she was hurt bad.
They found out that the ambulance is going to take a while, so they just said, we've got to get her to a hospital as quickly as possible.
Luke, he rushed her to Miller County Hospital.
Moments later, police and firefighters arrive on the scene.
When first responders arrived, the house was fully engulfed in flames. The fire department tried to put the fire out. By the time the fire was extinguished, the house was a total loss.
The hard thing about arson investigations is the evidence is likely destroyed in the fire. And that's obviously something we have to prove that this was intentional.
At this point in the investigation, anything's possible. You have to keep an open mind and look at all leads and follow everything through until you have a better idea of what happened.
Coming up, investigators turn to those who know Georgia best and learn about a person of interest with alarming intentions.
He apparently hadn't accepted that they were divorced.
She real strange. He loved her to death.
But an unsettling admission will take the case into supernatural territory.
In jealous rage, she put a curse on him.
In Baker County, Georgia, 61-year-old Georgia Green has been rushed to the hospital after being found outside her burning home, the victim of multiple stab wounds.
My sister, Ramona, she called me and woke me up. And I had to kind of like get my head right to understand what she was saying to me.
I said, I need you to go to Miller County Hospital. Mama been hurt. I need you to go there.
I was like, I was in shock. I was just trying to stay strong and just go and see what was going on.
As family members rush to the hospital, authorities at the crime scene try to figure out what happened.
They were able to establish that the fire was not an electrical fire. It was not a pan that had sat on the stove too long with grease and caught the house on fire.
Upon further examination, it was determined that the fire was started by means of an accelerant.
There was no question in this case this was intentional.
We like to examine the crime scene to try to find evidence to suggest who committed the crime or how the crime was committed. In this case, we were inhibited in doing that because the house was a total loss. It was burned to a crisp. We began to sift through the debris in that area of the residence, and multiple knives were located. The knives were burned to indicate that they had been there when the fire occurred.
Once the knives are collected as evidence, investigators head to the Miller County Hospital to check on their victim.
They talk to hospital staff who say they're working to keep her, stable at this point, but she's in critical condition. She can't talk, and they're getting ready to transfer her out of the hospital to Dothan for treatment.
She had multiple strokes while she was in the hospital after the stabbings.
She was stabbed 27 times, and quite frankly, looking at the condition that she was in, I didn't really think she was going to make it.
Considering the amount of knife wounds, it was a definite attempt to kill Georgia, not just a assault that occurred spur of the moment.
When investigators ask Ramona about who might want to harm Georgia, Ramona says her mother doesn't have an enemy in the world.
We learned that Ramona was inside her house when the incident occurred, and she went outside to see what was going on.
I told them Linaris, Kim, Luke, and my husband Brad was already over there.
Finding it suspicious that Georgia's ex-husband was present at the scene of the crime, Info has a complicated history.
It was all right in the beginning, but Luke and my mother were two of a kind, so it's just kind of hard to get along when, like that. They had two different ways, and sometimes it just don't work out. So my mother and Luke, they decided to separate, but continue being friends.
He apparently hadn't accepted that they were divorced, and he kept telling people they were together.
Luke's strange. He real strange. I'm just saying that he real strange. He loves her to death.
Investigators quickly turn their attention to Luke. They find him at the hospital, waiting for an update about Georgia.
When we met with Luke, he told us that he and Georgia were still married and that they lived together at the residence. But we knew that Luke and Georgia were separated, but still lived essentially in the same area on the property.
But Luke insists he had nothing to do with the attack on Georgia.
Luke Griffin went through everything and explained the chain of events as he had seen it.
Luke tells investigators he was helping Ramona's husband Brad in his garage around 11:30 a.m.
Luke and Brad were loading up scrap metal when they saw some vehicles in Georgia's yard, and then they saw smoke coming from the house. Shortly thereafter, they were approached by Lenoris Williams, who told them that the house was on fire.
When detectives speak with Brad, he corroborates Luke's statement and confirms the two men had been together all morning.
Luke's statement was consistent with the scene as well as the chain of events. We were able to rule Luke out as a possible suspect.
Investigators next asked the family how they know Lenoris and Kim Williams and why they were at Georgia's house.
Lenoris and Kimberly Williams had gone to her for blessings and some counseling through their marriage.
She taught them, counseled them, anything they need help with, she was there to get them inspiration and guide them through it.
Lenoris and Kim had been seeing Georgia for a while, and they showed up the morning that everything happened.
Kimberly and Lenoris were there in a vehicle, and at some point it was discovered that they locked the keys in the car, so they left the area on foot.
Now the GBI wants to talk to the two witnesses who have left the scene, so they issue a bolo for Lenoris and Kim Williams.
Time is always of the essence when you talk about criminal investigations. Those first interviews with witnesses is just crucial.
The entire community is becoming aware of what happened. This was right near the Baker-Miller County line. So now you've got Miller County getting involved in the bolo. You've got Baker County in the bolo. You've got the GBI in the bolo. And now with the community knowing what's going on, now they're invested in this bolo and they want to find this couple.
Less than an hour later, Kim and Lenoris Williams are spotted on foot, 2 miles away from Georgia Green's house.
The sheriff in Miller County actually was able to locate Kimberly and Lenoris Williams at a cemetery, and so he ended up following them.
When the deputy attempts to speak with the couple, Lenoris tries to walk away.
He seemed to be agitated, was acting very suspicious, according to the sheriff, which, of course, that sets off warning signs right away when someone acts in such a suspicious manner when you're trying to find out about what they may or may not know about the crime.
He decides he's got to take the couple into custody.
At this time, there were no arrest warrants for them. However, they were being detained for the furtherance of the investigation so that we could figure out what was going on.
One of the first things they wanted to do was get their side of the story, to interview two individuals and see what they had to say about the fire, who might have started it, what they might have seen.
Coming up, investigators sit down with their persons of interest and uncover a possible lead.
He said there was a black male that went into the house and left, and that's when the fire started.
He went in and stayed about 20-25 minutes. He came back out, kept looking it up.
In Baker County, Georgia, 61-year-old pastor Georgia Green is in critical condition after being stabbed more than 24 times inside her home.
People were shocked. They couldn't believe it. I mean, they were like, your mama don't bother people. She always trying to help people. Why would somebody want to do this?
Authorities have detained married couple Kim and Lenoris Williams, who were present when Georgia's house erupted into flames. On April 25th, 2017, one day after the attack, investigators sit down with Lenoris.
We now want to talk to a law enforcement officer, which is myself and Charles, about Georgia Green Griffin.
We helped that lady. Okay,
That's what we're here to talk about.
Okay.
We began asking Georgia for spiritual healing. Do you remember what time y'all went?
I said about that. Because I remember I looked at the clock, it was 11:53.
Okay. Who was there when y'all pulled up?
I don't know the people.
Was there a lot of cars? Or
It was two other cars.
They waited outside for some time while two other clients of Miss Georgia were seeing her. One was in I believe, a white vehicle that left pretty soon after she got there. Another in a blue vehicle that went in, stayed for a while.
Was it SUV or?
No, it wasn't SUV, it was a car.
And it was blue?
It was not navy blue. It was some kind of
Like a light blue?
basically.
Okay. And how many people were in it?
Just him.
White guy, white guy?
Black guy. He went in and stayed about 20-25 minutes. He came back out he kept looking at us.
Mm-hmm.
Kept looking at us.
He said there was a black male that went into the house and left, and that's when the fire started.
We seen smoke, and I went in the house. I'm trying to see was she okay?
Lenoris claims that he couldn't find Georgia.
Well, it's thick smoke. He said, I gotta come out and get a little air. I'm trying to get to this woman, trying to get her out. So when I did, why? I said, hold on, let me go get my son-in-law. He was outside. So I ran up there and got him.
So yesterday, back to that.
Okay.
So what were y'all going out there for yesterday?
We're going to talk to her, ask her we needed help.
Lenoris explains that he and his wife went to see Georgia because they'd been having marital problems. He tells investigators he and Kim have been together for the past 4 years.
My mom met Lenoris through social media. He told her that he had been watching her for years because Lenoris actually used to hang around my cousins on my dad's side. So I guess he used to see her a lot when we used to go to my great-grandmother's house.
At the time, Kim was a single parent with a teenage daughter and an infant son. A year into their relationship, Lenoris and Kim had a baby of their own.
Lenoris was actually a traveling construction He decided to stop that and, just be home all the time, to be around his family. He began to be the stepfather that me and my little brother needed in our life.
In June 2015, Lenoris and Kim got married. Lenoris took a job at a solar company in Bainbridge, Georgia.
He loved her. She loved him. She loved him too. So this is what it's finna be forever. I guess we're finna be a family.
But just when it seemed like the family had achieved their happily ever after, Lenoris was dealt a devastating blow.
Kimberly and Lenoris had some financial troubles even while Lenoris had the good job, but it seemed to escalate after Lenoris' employment terminated.
It did become a whole bunch of arguments, fights, fussing. It got worse and worse and worse.
Lenoris tells investigators that their financial situation caused major strain in their relationship, and he wanted to do whatever he could to get his marriage and his life back on track.
Lenoris really wanted that relationship to work and believed that there was extraneous problems.
Georgia, she'd been seeing Kim and Lenoris in a counseling capacity.
Y'all know she got worship.
No, I'm like, no, no. We don't know. We thought she was a preacher.
She knew spiritual work.
You couldn't tell me about that.
You know what spiritual work is?
Not really.
Lenoris explained that he and Kimberly were seeing Georgia for spiritual healing, or was commonly known as root doctor.
When someone puts roots on you, they're putting some sort of control over you.
Be like voodoo. It would be forcing someone to do something they don't know they're doing. They're using some kind of, potion of curses and the jinx.
Lenoris was seeing Georgia specifically because he had had bad roots put on him. Lenoris' ex-girlfriend put bad roots on him, so we asked him to explain how the bad roots were put on him.
She told me that. She was like, this woman being your draw. I'm like, huh? She said the woman begged my draw. So I asked her.
Lenoris says his girlfriend was mad at him that he had gotten married to Kimberly, and she was jealous, and in a jealous rage, she took his underwear, I think buried it, along with fingernail clippings and maybe some menstrual fluid, and put a curse on Mr. Williams. Part of the reason that Lenoris and Kimberly Williams went to see Miss Green is because in the religious doctrine of roots, in order to have a curse lifted, you have to have a religious leader that's more powerful or more established than the original one that put the curse on the person.
And we asked her, can she get it, get me cured for that?
Lenoris explains that Georgia offered to help the couple.
They were paying potions or herbs to help get the bad roots off of them.
She did a thing, and it's like we bought a prostitute, but we paid time money.
Who's we?
Me and Kim.
Okay.
We supposed to, prosper, a good marriage, me a career, and her career, whatever she want to do. But it's like he wanted to prosper.
Lenoris didn't feel that Georgia's services were helping them in any way, and they were both angry at Georgia for not helping them properly.
One of the things in criminal law that we always do is establish motive, opportunity, and means. Establish the motive is they basically were mad and thought that Miss Green had swindled them out of their money and that she had not given them the blessings that they deserved for giving her the cash.
Coming up, with their suspects in focus, lovers will turn against each other.
Okay. Ready?
Ready.
He did it to that woman. That hurts, don't it?
Hurt by what?
To hear her say something like that. That you know ain't the truth, right? So why don't you tell me the whole story?
And a captivating witness sets the record straight about what really happened.
That changed the whole ballgame.
After the brutal stabbing of 61-year-old Georgia Green, investigators investigators learn that Lenoris Williams may have had a reason to harm her. When they interview his wife, Kim, she provides them with a noticeably different version of events.
What happens when you get to Miss George's house? What happens when you get there?
I was asleep.
She advised that Lenoris tells her he wants her to ride with him. She had a headache, taken a couple of Benadryls to ease her. She was drowsy, had been asleep, got up, got in the vehicle, slept on her way there, didn't really know where they were going or what they were doing.
They got to Georgia's and she was basically napping in the car and doesn't really know what happened. So you go to sleep, go back to sleep. What happens when you wake back up?
When I wake up, I see like fire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I see like fire. Like I'm like, what the hell going on? You know, what the hell going on? So I'm jumping out the truck. I don't know what's going on here and stuff. And he came running from running. I said, what's going on? What's going on? He was like, I'm trying to help her out the house. You know, he was like, I'm trying to help Miss George out the house or whatever. I said, what's going on?
Man in a blue vehicle. The only man she places at the scene of the crime is her husband, Lenoris.
Lenoris was in the house.
And y'all both in the house, right?
Lenoris was in the house. And I just
Lenoris was in the house.
I told you.
And you were in the house, right?
No, I wasn't.
Well then now let's talk the truth then. Tell me what really happened.
He did it.
I know he did. But I also know that you were in that house, right? Yes?
He did it.
Yeah, but you were in the house, weren't you? Kim?
He did.
So Kim, you still not gonna tell me the truth?
I told you everything you want to hear.
She just kept saying repeatedly, that's all I've got to say, that's all I've got to say. So we terminated the interview with Kimberly.
Authorities hold both suspects in custody while they continue to gather evidence.
I obtained a search warrant to search Kimberly's purse. We found a notebook with some writings about Georgia Green. The writings seemed to be aggressive or angry in nature towards Georgia. We also found a discount store receipt where a knife and a roll of duct tape was purchased earlier in the morning of the day of the incident.
Investigators followed up with that receipt and got the video from that discount store of Lenoris purchasing duct tape and a knife. And this relates back to the knife found in the house fire.
I actually purchased the same knife that Lenoris purchased, and the knife that I purchased was later compared to the knife that we recovered at the fire scene. And the knives were visually similar in size and shape to each other.
Investigators confront Lenoris Williams with the new evidence.
I'm here to hear from you and for you to tell me. And if something went astray that wasn't as planned, then that's fine. But now is your time to tell me.
I mean, what you talking about, like, evidence, like?
Well,
That's a knife.
They showed him the evidence of him purchasing the knife and the duct tape. He started to change his story from no involvement to yes, he did go in the house.
Lenoris claims that he had gone to Georgia's house to confront her about the cost of her services.
We paid they helped us, like, it was $375. Then one time we paid $150. I'm like, I don't see no improvement.
So what were y'all going out for? Just like you said you did to talk to Miss Jordan.
And you asked him, like a straight, honest man, to get the truth off of you and let you and your wife prosper in your life the way you're supposed to. And she wouldn't do it, would she?
She said we had to start all the way back home.
Georgia explained that they could start over with the healing process, but it would require another monetary fee, which Lenoris and Kimberly didn't have. Things in the room escalated, and an argument ensued. Lenoris described the chain of events as Georgia being more aggressive and that Georgia attacked him, therefore he stabbed Georgia in self-defense. Why did you take a knife and duct tape with you?
Because I planned I was going to take her, but I didn't know.
use the knife for?
Brenda, but I didn't do it. She charged me for it.
Okay.
In my mind, like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
He did say that he took the knife in his pocket, that he had the duct tape in his breeches when he went into Miss George's house, and that whatever happened there, he had done in self-defense, and Kimberly was not part of it.
Lenore's, I appreciate you coming clean on some of the stuff, but I still don't think you're telling me the entire truth. And that's what I'm here is to. I'm here to collect the facts, Lenore's.
I'm telling the truth.
And what you're telling me is still not adding up completely.
Investigators shift the focus of the conversation to Kim Williams.
From talking to Lenore's, it was very clear that he was deeply devoted to Kimberly and that he would do things for her. And one of the things that we explained to him was Kimberly didn't share that devotion. You and I both know that there's more to this as far as her knowledge.
Yeah, I had spoke with her.
Yeah?
Yeah, I had spoke with her.
And she throwing you under the bus.
Throwing you straight under the bus.
The investigator played a portion of one of Kimberly's recorded interviews where she was laying the blame on Lenore's.
Okay. Ready?
Ready.
I'm not lying this with you.
Well then now, let's talk the truth then. Tell me what really happened. When we played the portion of the recording from Kimberly's interview, Lenore's completely changed.
He did still want.
Believe it or not,
I believe it.
he was upset by how Kimberly...
She still doing it.
Huh?
She still doing it.
He told that she did take part in stabbing Miss Georgia, that she knew what they were going to do when they went there, that she was involved much more than Kimberly let on that she was involved.
Why did Kim say that for?
She broke her marriage. She could never be happy.
Kimberly seems to be the driving force behind this whole incident. She seems to be the one that has the control and manipulation over Lenore's.
He was so wrapped up in all of this and believed that Miss Georgia was creating problems between he and Kimberly, but he did not want to lose Kimberly, so he did whatever Kimberly thought they should do to resolve the problem. And they went there planning to do harm to Miss Georgia.
Despite Lenore's claims that his wife stabbed Georgia, Kim maintains her innocence.
Kimberly says that it was Lenore's idea, it was his plan. At this point, it's partially a he said, she said scenario.
Investigators arrest both suspects on a charge of attempted murder. But they still don't have a clear understanding of what happened to Georgia Green on April 24th. Then, on May 8th, a family's prayers are finally answered.
I slept for 8 days, and I woke up. They said that was close to death or whatever, but it never dawned on me because I got so much faith. You know what I'm saying? I got so much faith in the Lord that He would deliver me.
Weeks after she was attacked and left for dead in her burning home, 61-year-old Georgia Green miraculously recovers, and police are finally able to speak with her.
Once we learned that the breathing tube had been removed, myself and Investigator Griffin traveled to Dothan to attempt to interview Georgia. She was able to give us a lot more details and explain more of what happened.
I had 3 or 4 people that morning. Kimberly and Lenore's waited. All the rest of my clients left, and they showed up there. When they came in, I told them, I said, I can't talk to y'all right now. And he's saying, well, we're just coming by to see how you doing. I said, I've been doing good, like that. And the girl didn't say nothing of my death. And he would hit me. On the head with it. He said, "Where the money, bitch?" And I said, "I don't have no money here." I stood up. And when I stood up, she come out with a knife. She stabbed me around the neck, in my back, close to my heart, anywhere she could stab me. And so I fell on the floor. When I fell on the floor, I got up on the desk. They were dead. They were pulling all the paper and stuff out my drawer, throwing everything all over the floor. They were just throwing stuff, cussing one another. And he told me, he said, "Get the gas." They sprinkled gas all on the wall, everywhere, all the glass, everywhere. Poured gas all over me. So they went in, they lit it up. It was burning.
After Lenoris and Kim fled her home, Georgia realized she didn't have much time.
A lot of people don't understand how I got up. It had to be God. It had to be God. And when I there behind the house and I sit down, I ain't said nothing. I just, sit in a spot.
As with anything, there's still unanswered questions. But as far as who is the person or people that assaulted Georgia, it was clear that it was Lenoris and Kimberly.
When I do counseling, I take people at my family, not looking at, the bad side. I look at everybody good. And that would really bother me, is how good I was to them. And that's how they repaid me.
Lenoris and Kim Williams are both indicted for attempted murder, aggravated assault, and arson. They face 60 years in prison. Then, on January 26, 2020, one day before Lenoris Williams' trial is set to begin, a surprising new development unfolds.
Lenoris decided to enter a guilty plea. He was not given any promises of leniency. He entered what's called a blind plea, which means that he admits to the accusations, and it's up to the judge to sentence him. Part of the agreement was that Lenoris would give a full debrief of what happened and agree to testify against Kimberly.
Faced with the news that her husband has turned against her, Kim Williams enters her own guilty plea the very next day.
Miss Williams had to admit that she did, in fact, stab and burn down the house of Miss Gray. So that was one great thing about the plea, was she had to finally take responsibility. And without Kimberly. And both of them had such strong religious convictions and beliefs in this root that it just overtook maybe any kind of sense of rationality that either one of them may have had to start with.
In the end, they each got 40-year sentences. Lenoris, I think, was genuinely in love with Kimberly. I think he wanted that relationship to continue, and when Kimberly told him it was over unless you solved this problem with Miss Georgia, it induced him to do as she said and go buy a knife and duct tape and get gas to burn the house.
I believe that Lenoris did do everything, and she was dragged into it. If my mother did have a part of it, I believe that he forced her.
This whole incident is completely senseless and tragic. Georgia, lost her home. Georgia lost some of her physical abilities to do things due to her injuries.
My mother had, in the beginning, she had some bad days, and she had some good days. But she kept praying and built the strength to keep going on. A lot of people wouldn't have survived what I went through with. What I went through with, they couldn't even made it out of that fire. And that's why I say I'm blessed. To be, be able to overcome, to be able to walk again. And I'm still counseling people. And that's why I say I'm blessed. I hope that I'll be able to go on with my life and continue to do the will of the Lord and keep on being blessed while I am healing.
A peaceful beachside community is rocked when a beloved schoolteacher falls victim to a vicious crime.
She was beaten over the head with a blunt object. She suffered devastating injuries.
I heard screams, just absolute screams from everywhere. I instructed everyone just to call 911. I wanted someone there so I could go chase this guy.
As authorities race to track down a dangerous criminal, the investigation zeroes in on a business deal gone bad.
She was getting money from a whole bunch of friends. A lot of people were upset because they never got any of their investment back.
The truth reveals a harrowing betrayal and a secret romance that emboldened deadly passions.
As human beings, we always tend to lash out with the people that we love the most.
I think those two, feeding off of each other, came together to make this perfect storm that caused this crime.
December 4th, 2016. The evening is winding down in Long Beach, New York, a barrier island off Long Island's South Shore.
Beach community, very family-oriented, very social. The 2.1-mile boardwalk is our crown jewel. You can find people every day, even in the winter, exercising, enjoying it. It consistently ranks in the top of the safest cities to live in the United States.
On this night, however, the usual calm of the beach community is shattered at 10:30 p.m. when local resident Franklin Kuzma witnesses something out of the ordinary.
I was doing a normal boardwalk workout, and I noticed someone was walking into their foyer, and they were going home, and someone kind of ran up behind them. And all of a sudden, I heard lots of screams. It was very dark. You could see, like, with a little silhouette shadow of exactly what was happening. Someone, all of a sudden, took out something really big and started hitting them over the head with it. I immediately started running towards the whole situation.
When the assailant notices Franklin approaching, they take off running.
I ran over to the scene and I saw this woman on the ground. She was really in bad shape. She was completely unresponsive. People started coming out of the apartment building, and he was already a good 15, 20 seconds ahead of me. So I ran after him as fast as I could. As I was catching up to him, he kept looking back, and I was gaining ground. I chased him a long way, and as I got close to him, he went into a very dark alley. It was so dark, I was kind of like walking through the alley with my hands above my head, wondering when he was going to try and hit me. That's when I lost him. Because it was extremely dark.
After losing the assailant's trail, Franklin returns to check on the victim and finds Long Beach police have already arrived on the scene.
The initial responding officers found the victim lying in the courtyard outside of an apartment with heavy blunt force trauma injuries about her head and face.
She was in a pool of blood. She was beaten severely.
The victim was unconscious and unresponsive. The fire department immediately gave medical aid.
Neighbors identify the woman as 56-year-old Teresa Kiel, a local school teacher who lives in the building with her two adult children, 18-year-old Francesca and 24-year-old Vincent.
Around the same time, Vincent, her son, shows up at the apartment building and sees the commotion and says, that's my mother.
Vincent told us that he had been out to dinner with his mother earlier in the night. When the attack occurred, a resident that lives in that complex called Vincent right away, and he came to the scene.
It was a miracle she was still alive. And they rushed her to the hospital.
The crime scene was established. They began to interview the neighbors to determine who this woman was and what might happen to her.
Originally from neighboring Queens County, New York, Teresa Ann Albano had dedicated her life to children.
Teresa was very loved by her community, especially the schools in which she taught. She was the teacher that everybody wanted to have. The kids loved her, the parents loved her, and her colleagues loved her.
Terry Kiel was just a wonderful woman. Her husband had passed away in 2004. He had been a prominent dentist up in Glen Cove, Long Island. She had basically raised her children single-handedly. That included Vincent and her daughter Francesca.
She was very dedicated, especially when their father passed away.
Despite their loss, Francesca and Vincent thrived under their mother's care. While Francesca shined academically, Vincent excelled at sports.
He discovered that he had a real knack for tennis. Vincent went all the way up to tournament levels and was a bit of a tennis phenom in the area. In 2015, Francesca graduated from Long Beach High School. She got a job waitressing, and at the time, her mother encouraged her to go to Nassau Community College to help further her education and open up more opportunities for her, and Francesca did, and she started attending classes there. Vincent was also coming into his own. He was starting to develop apps, and Teresa was 100% in support and was a big champion for Vincent in trying to help him push this forward and get these things done.
She had also earned her doctorate while she was working. She was just a great person.
Teresa had actually been working on creating a tutoring program for the homeless in the area. She was very friendly. She was very willing to help you if you needed help.
But now, the 56-year-old schoolteacher is clinging to life after a brutal assault. And Long Beach police are trying to piece together what happened.
A review of the crime scene showed that there was a deep gash in the wall close to where Teresa Kiel's body was found, indicating that whatever instrument was used to injure Teresa Kiel at some point missed her and struck the wall and took a deep gouge out of the wall. Her pocketbook was next to her. Nothing was taken from her pocketbook. Her wallet was still in her pocketbook. So we knew this most likely wasn't a random attack because nothing was missing. The injuries to Teresa Kiel's head in particular and the violence of the entire attack led us to believe that this was a personal encounter.
This just spoke of rage, of somebody who had hatred, right, and rage for this woman for whatever reason.
Based on the evidence of the scene, detectives believe Teresa likely knew the perpetrator. But who had attacked her?
Oftentimes you don't have an eyewitness to a crime, but we were really fortunate to have Franklin Kuzma be the eyewitness who happened to be there finishing a workout and who was willing and courageous enough to get involved and actually pursue a guy who had just viciously attacked Teresa Kiel.
He's 6'3". He was wearing a big hat. He had on a vest, and he had on something that covered his kind of like his bottom chin a little bit, and you really couldn't make out who it was.
When Franklin told us what had happened with chasing this subject, we knew we had to broaden our search.
Long Beach police had K-9 and every officer out there looking for the person who committed this horrific assault because they wanted to make sure that if he was in the area that they could apprehend him safely.
After a period of time elapsed, it appeared that perhaps the person escaped our efforts to locate him, and officers began combing the area for any type of physical evidence, now that we know the route that he took. And in a back alley, over a fence, officers located the weapon. They found the bar from a dumbbell. It did have what appeared to be blood evidence on it, and that was preserved and secured by them.
The weapon was discovered in an alley. I went to that residence and I discovered that there was video in the alley. and found that the subject was captured on the video.
Coming up, as the manhunt for the assailant intensifies, police unearth evidence of a stalker.
The GPS tracker had to have been placed on Teresa Kiel's car because the movement of the tracker was predominantly between places where she spent the majority of her time.
In Long Beach, New York, local middle school teacher Teresa Kiel is in critical condition after an assault outside her apartment. In their search for the assailant, detectives have discovered home security cameras in a back alley near the crime scene.
I located the owner of the video and downloaded the video and found that the subject was captured on the video, but that for the LED bulbs that light up the video at night were defective, so all we could get was a shadow of the individual.
Detectives secure more security footage in the area and watch as their witness Francesca Kiel chases the assailant down.
The assailant who was seen on the surveillance video was also carrying a duffel bag, so with him.
Unfortunately, detectives can't identify the perp from the footage alone. With little else to go on, detectives head to the hospital to speak with Teresa's family. There, they learn Teresa's prognosis is grim.
Teresa suffered devastating injuries. The right side of her skull was basically caved in.
She is entirely dependent on life support now. She's in a vegetative state.
I responded to the hospital in the wee hours of the morning. We spoke with Vincent Kiel at the hospital, and we also spoke with Teresa's brother, Michael.
Vincent and Teresa's brother were extremely devastated over what happened to Teresa Kiel.
When detectives question Teresa's family about the whereabouts of Teresa's daughter, Francesca, Vincent tells them that they haven't been able to get a hold of her. According to Vincent, his sister had moved out 10 months earlier, following a dispute with their family.
Francesca had lost all touch with her family. She did not speak to any of them, including her mother. She had no contact with the family whatsoever.
Suspicious of this new piece of information, detectives ask Vincent to elaborate on the family conflict. He explains that the hostility stemmed from Francesca's relationship with his former friend, 26-year-old Ralph Keppler.
Ralph Keppler was a New York City corrections officer. He was also an entrepreneur. He was very, very interested in starting new businesses and making money off of those businesses.
As one of his ventures, Ralph had invested in a dating app that Vincent Kiel was developing.
Vincent and Ralph were very good friends, and based upon their friendship and entrepreneurial spirit, Ralph Keppler and his family invested approximately $130,000 into the app.
Vincent tells police that while they were working together on the app, Ralph had also taken an interest in his 18-year-old sister, Francesca.
She meets Ralph Keppler, who was very handsome, very well-built, and older than her by a few years. And, you know, this handsome older man is lavishing her with attention.
They became romantically involved. Francesca, by all accounts, fell pretty hard for him. She was madly in love with him.
But according to Vincent, the
Teresa and Vincent did not approve of Francesca dating Ralph. There was obviously a lot of bad blood.
Vincent and Ralph started to butt heads, and their friendship started to deteriorate.
The worst part, according to Vincent, was that Ralph, in his anger, had turned Francesca against him.
The more involved with Ralph Keppler that Francesca got, the bigger
the rift between Francesca and her mother. And ultimately, Francesca Kiel moved out of her mother's house and moved in with Ralph, who lived with his grandfather in a house in Limbrook.
While Vincent doesn't think his sister is capable of harming their mother, detectives want to talk to her immediately.
The detectives from Long Beach drive up to Lynbrook, to Francesca's home where she lives with Ralph, at 1:30, 1:45 in the morning.
When detectives introduce themselves to Francesca and Ralph, the couple appears surprised to see them.
They bring them to opposite sides of the house and talk to them separately to get their stories about what happened that night.
We spoke to Francesca. I advised her that her mother had been very seriously injured.
And Francesca was stunned into silence. Then the detectives proceeded to ask her, "What were you doing this night? Where were you?"
She conveyed to me that she had been home with Ralph all day, wrapping presents and watching football.
As proof, Francesca produces photos she and Ralph took during the time Teresa was attacked.
She showed us a photo that was time-stamped and date-stamped, seeming to show Ralph Keppler and Francesca Kiel wrapping Christmas presents within moments of the brutal assault on Teresa Kiel.
Ralph is also talking to the officers on the other side of the house, and he tells them the same things that Francesca told them, that they were wrapping presents and they were watching football, and they have pictures of them wrapping presents to back it up.
He said the only time he left the house was earlier that morning at approximately 11 a.m., and that was to go buy a lottery ticket for his grandfather.
With Ralph and Francesca cleared as persons of interest, detectives aim to gather more information that might lead them to a new suspect. They ask the couple about the recent tension with Teresa. They don't deny it and claim their anger is valid because Teresa had stolen.
Teresa was soliciting money from people to help fund Vincent's app. She got tens of thousands of dollars, and Francesca told the police that a lot of people were upset because the app never materialized.
Ralph Keppler and his parents sued Vincent and Terry. There were some other investors involved also, and they wanted their money back.
Francesca was pointing to that as a possible motive for the attack on Teresa.
The Oceanside community of Long Beach, New York is reeling after news has spread that 56-year-old Teresa Kiel was viciously assaulted outside of her apartment.
Those injuries were just so overpowering and so dramatic. I just couldn't believe it, frankly. I was just emotionally struck by it, and I broke down, frankly, because, it was just heartbreaking for me.
Detectives are speaking to Teresa's daughter Francesca and Francesca's boyfriend Ralph Keppler, who believe that the attack may be the result of Teresa's recent business dealings.
When they're interviewing Francesca, they ask her, "Does anyone have a reason to attack your mother?" And Francesca tells them that some people are saying that she's a crook who's stealing money from people and using her son's app to line her own pockets.
Ralph Keppler and his parents sued Vincent and Terry. There were some other investors involved also, so that's why she came to me.
Armed with this new information, detectives begin tracking down investors and question them about their dealings with Teresa Kiel.
They start speaking to other people who invested in the app, just to see if any of them could possibly be part of it.
While detectives confirmed that Teresa had faced civil litigation, the investors claimed there was no basis for a lawsuit.
The investors basically got their money back, and that case, of course, was dismissed.
There wasn't any sign of animosity between the parties. They were ruled out fairly rapidly as being involved. It was clear it wasn't them at that point. The detectives do look at everybody that potentially could be involved. They looked to see what activity's been in the area. They looked to see what offenders might have been recently released, who might be doing these type of crimes. But in Long Beach, being a very safe community, there is not a whole lot of that type of activity. The next step, the victim can't speak for herself, so we have to ask her electronic devices to speak for her. Who might have threatened her? What might have happened? We hope that the phone and the analysis of it can provide that information. We found some contentious texts between Ms. Kiel and her daughter and her son, indicating that there were problems in the family relationship. Some of these problems appeared to be related to business dealings.
Contrary to Francesca and Ralph's claims, the animosity found in the text messages leads investigators back to Ralph Keppler.
The person who was most angry over the whole money issue was Ralph. And Ralph, of everyone who had lost their money to the app, Ralph was the most aggressive.
Teresa Kiel kind of managed the investment money. Ralph Keppler was under the assumption that the money was being misappropriated, and that's where the conflict started. We saw a number of different text messages where he expressed extreme hatred towards Teresa Kiel.
Ralph Keppler was sort of blatant in his communications. He was not only threatening them in emails and so forth, but in photographs and other communications.
As detectives continue digging into Teresa's life, receive more information that Teresa was scared of Ralph.
Friends of Teresa came forward to the police, and one of them had a text message that Teresa had sent her. It said that Francesca had moved in with a psychopath who wanted to, quote, kill her and Vince.
Teresa Kiel knew how much Ralph hated her and was concerned that ultimately he was going to harm her or her son, or possibly her daughter.
Detectives immediately secure search warrants for Ralph Keppler and Francesca Kiel's cell phones. They look for any information that Ralph was involved, and whether or not Francesca knew about it.
Detectives went through phone records, in particular, Francesca Kiel's phone records. One of the detectives actually researched every call that was made in the months leading up to the attack on Teresa Kiel.
Came across a 1-800 number, and he looked into what that 1-800 number was, and he saw that it belonged to a company called Spytech.
They're basically an outfit that sells, among other things, GPS tracking devices. We were able to ask them to provide any information they had regarding a purchase was made by Francesca using her credit card of a GPS device.
The receipt showed that it was delivered by overnight or next day mail and turned on November 25th, 2016. Once the detective learned that a GPS tracking device was purchased by Francesca Kiel about 2.5 weeks before her mother's assault, we did a search warrant and we asked the company for the GPS records. When we got the GPS tracking device records and we realized that the GPS tracker had to have been placed on Teresa Kiel's car because the movement of the tracker was predominantly between the places where she spent the majority of her time.
The police, using that information, start going through all of Francesca's emails. And they find alerts from the company and the tracking device. And they realize that Francesca had set specific alerts so that she would know when her mother was either at home or at work.
Detectives have to wonder, had Francesca betrayed her mother for her boyfriend? Or is it possible Ralph had made the purchase without Francesca's awareness?
Well, the only person besides Francesca who would have access to her credit card and her email and her passwords was Ralph, who she was living with.
We applied for a warrant for the cell sites for Ralph Keppler's phone and Francesca's phone. We were given Teresa Kiel's cell sites, and we had a warrant for the GPS for Spytech.
We put the 4 cell sites together, and we were able to simultaneously look at direction of travel in the car and the other phone numbers associated with Keppler and Francesca's phone.
It was our understanding, based upon some detectives from the Nassau County Electronics Department, that these GPS trackers have batteries, but they don't last forever. You have to take the batteries out and change them every couple days. So there were multiple times when we saw Ralph and Francesca's phone meet up with the GPS, and it was our belief that they were changing the batteries on the GPS to make sure that it would continue to track Teresa Kiel's movements. This told us that Francesca, as well as Ralph, were tracking Teresa's movements for weeks leading up to the assault.
Coming up, as police build their case to take down their primary suspects, questions about the crime's true mastermind begin to mount.
The more involved she got with him, the more dependent she got on him.
Be horrible.
Nearly a month into their investigation, Long Beach, New York police have zeroed in on 18-year-old Francesca Kiel and 26-year-old Ralph Keppler as the primary suspects in the attack on Francesca's mother, Teresa Kiel. After learning the couple had been tracking Teresa for weeks prior to the assault.
Most investigations are methodical. It's take a record, look it up, find out about it, move on to the next step. This can go on for months. Search warrant process and subpoena process takes time. To apply to a judge for a warrant is a very serious matter. They don't undertake it lightly. So the investigations slow down at this point as we collect information.
Detectives continue digging into Francesca Kiel's phone records and find more incriminating evidence.
In addition to the call to the GPS company, there was also a call placed to the Long Beach taxi cab company right around the time of the attack.
Francesca wasn't in Long Beach at the time when she made the call. Her cell sites put her in Lynbrook, where she lived with Ralph Keppler. It was our belief she was calling for a getaway car for Ralph Keppler after the attack.
We're able to determine the license number and the taxi number of the taxi, and we're able to get records from the taxi company.
We did find a cab driver who picked up a male matching Ralph Keppler's description. She said he jumped into the back row, ducked down. She described him as acting very suspicious, very, very paranoid, looking around quite a bit. Told her, take me to the rail, and then paid her, I think it was $18 or $19 for a $5 fare, and jumped out right next to the train station.
To solidify their case, detectives tracked down more surveillance footage from the night of the attack.
From the initial videos, we could see that this subject was a large, stocky individual. He appeared to be very muscular, very strong, but he was very quick.
Ralph Keppler has a very specific body type. He is extremely well built, and he's very boxy. He's tall, he's big, but he's also very square. So when you saw the assailant running down the road, there's almost no question that it could be anybody other.
On January 24th, 2018, more than a year after the attack on Teresa Kiel, detectives take Ralph Keppler into custody.
Long Beach Police Department detectives arrested Ralph Keppler at his job as a corrections officer at Rikers Island.
Ralph Keppler was arrested and charged with the attempted murder of Teresa Kiel.
Now that Ralph was under arrest, we were able to get a court order for a swab of his cheek, and that's what we did.
The DNA sample is sent to the lab to compare with DNA on the bloody barbell found near the scene of the crime. Meanwhile, detectives attempt to speak with Ralph. Unfortunately, he is unwilling to cooperate any further.
I don't advise you of your rights, so you're willing to answer questions. One attorney doesn't.
point he was brought to court and arraigned on those charges, my office asked that he remain incarcerated during the pendency of the criminal case. The judge did set bail in the amount of $500,000. Ralph Keppler ultimately posted that bail.
Despite their belief that Francesca played a role in the crime, authorities don't have enough evidence to arrest her. But Francesca's friends offer detectives insight into a relationship they claim had turned toxic.
Initially, when Ralph and Francesca started to date, Francesca was still close with her family and very close with her mother. But the more she became involved with Ralph Keppler, the more she started to be pulled away from her family. Ralph would tell her things that her family was against her, that they did not have her best interest at heart, that they were going to take her money. She had an inheritance from her father who passed away, and Ralph made her believe that her family was going to take that inheritance from her.
Francesca's mother worked hard to try to get her back into the family. And I think this caused Ralph Keppler to push even harder to control Francesca. Get her away from the family, basically so he could have complete control of her for himself. She was addicted to Ralph Keppler. She was completely under his control, completely submissive to him. And I think Ralph Keppler, in the end, had Francesca convinced that her mother was a monster.
Finally, November 2018, detectives received the results from the crime lab.
The lab, and it was determined that Teresa Kiel's blood was in fact on that barbell. There were other male profiles that were unknown at the time. So after Ralph was arrested and once that swab was taken, his DNA profile was compared and he matched. At that point, my office, along with the police department, completed over 24 search warrants for social media, electronic devices, cell phone evidence, computer evidence, just trying to see how deeply Francesca was involved. And we were able to retrieve some internet searches that were done under Francesca Kiel's username. And as soon as we read those internet searches, it was game over. There were searches about how reliable is DNA evidence. We found searches about single hit death blows, weakest part of the skull, strongest part of the skull, brain death, how to kill someone and get away with it. There were a tremendous amount of searches.
Then, nearly 2 years after the attack, authorities received tragic news.
On November 10th, 2018, we were notified that Teresa Kiel had passed away.
She was beaten severely over the head and really never recovered from those injuries. She was essentially in a vegetative state until ultimately she succumbed to her injuries.
It was a slow and painful way to die. It took years.
When Teresa passed away, after the medical examiner issued their findings in cooperation with the DA's office, it was determined that we would rearrest Ralph Keppler for murder, and we would also arrest Francesca Kiel for murder.
Unfortunately, when she was arrested, she decided, again speaking with the police, she had a right to remain silent. She was advised of those rights. She decided to exercise those rights.
Coming up, as the case heads to trial, investigators hope that one of the co-conspirators might turn on the other.
At this point, both sides have articulated bad blood between each other. We have to keep our focus very wide and look for anything that may come up.
Six-year-old school teacher has died. and her daughter Francesca Kiel and Francesca's boyfriend Ralph Keppler have been indicted for her murder.
Ralph had managed to apparently turn Francesca from, a devoted daughter into a cold murderer.
That is just over the top insane. Just over the top insane. Well, how do you convince a daughter to kill her mother?
Prosecutors theorize that on the night of December 4th, 2016, Francesca tracked her mother's movements to the diner where she would have her last meal with Vincent.
She would have got a geo alert when they got there, but they would have known when she left the diner as well because the cars tracked continuously.
So, knowing that she was there and that Teresa would soon be going home, Francesca ordered the cab to take Ralph to the apartment where he would lie in wait for Teresa and then attack her.
At the same time, Francesca used both her and Ralph's phones to establish an alibi.
What we think happened was that they took a picture in a social media platform and left it up in, say, the cloud. And then what happened was right after the incident, Francesca would have taken those pictures from that social media platform, taken it down to both phones, and saved the picture to the camera roll. I believe that there were burner phones involved and that one had called the other from these burner phones. During that time, he said whatever he said to her, whether it's a code or he said he did it, I don't know. She then took her phone and his phone and downloaded these pictures from this third-party cloud app and then saved them onto both phones at the same time.
She sat there and waited for the moment when her mom was going to die to create an alibi. She had an opportunity to pick up a phone. She had an opportunity to stop him. She had an opportunity to say, "Don't do this to my mother." She elected not to do any of those things and to provide an alibi for her boyfriend. She's 100% part of this crime.
In December 2019, the state meets with Ralph's defense team to discuss a plea agreement.
The detectives found those extremely important internet searches. It was my job to make sure that the defense attorney knew about the defense attorney as to the amount of and the content of the internet searches. That is when, shortly thereafter, Ralph had agreed to plead guilty.
Ralph accepted a sentence of 22 years to life. The maximum sentence for murder in the second degree in New York would be 25 to life. In exchange for his agreement to plead guilty, the judge gave him a commitment that he would basically save 3 years and be sentenced to 22 years to life. He will have to do at least 22 years behind bars and could potentially spend the rest of his life behind bars.
My office ultimately offered Francesca a plea to manslaughter in the first degree, as long as it was conditioned upon her serving 13 years in jail. And once we made that offer to Francesca, she accepted it soon thereafter.
It was shocking to me that it got to the point where Francesca was willing to serve her own mother up on a silver platter to Ralph Keppler.
Their hatred for this woman, somebody who was well-loved by the community, someone who was well-loved by her family, someone who was well-loved by the children that she taught, that's what ultimately led to her violent death.
She was just a great person. She really was, and did not deserve to die.
If those two never got together, if they never dated, Teresa Kiel would be alive today.
Tragedy strikes a close-knit southern town.
You see these types of killings a lot of times with the cartel or mafia.
This is probably one of the most complex homicides that I've been a part of.
Family and friends are left wondering who could target such a beloved member of his community.
He treated us like each of us were part of his family, and he was just simply taking care of us.
That was my only son. It hit hard that somebody had taken my baby from me.
In search of justice, investigators unearth a disturbing plot.
I mean, he asked me honestly, did they kill my brother?
One born both out of greed and deadly romance, fueled by a macabre obsession.
He described dancing around in a ritualistic manner. He told me, I think she just wanted to play with a dead body. She's crazy.
It was kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde situation. We can do whatever, ride or die.
I don't believe they could have done it without the other because they both had sinister intention and they relied on each other.
It's a cautionary tale about the dangers of meeting people online because you don't know what their true intentions may be.
It's hard to imagine that kind of to live in the world.
In the heart of the Deep South, Metro Atlanta is a mix of vibrant city life and pastoral settings.
The further out you move from the Metro Atlanta area, such as into Cobb and even to Paulding, the more rural things get. You expect that there's going to be a lesser crime rate.
But on the evening of June 3rd, 2016, the Paulding County Sheriff's Office receives an alarming phone call.
Calling 911.
Yeah, I'm calling from Paulding Chrysler Jeep, and we have a neighbor who just walked down the road and he said he's found a dead body right across from our dealership on Old Griffin Road.
The man was walking his dog when he came across he's suspected to be a decomposing body.
He became alarmed and he went to a neighboring business and called 911.
Is it all intact, did he say?
Well, that's what I don't know yet.
Male or female? Any other?
Do not know.
The body was found off of a major sort of 4-lane roadway in Paulding County.
The first responders arrived.
The deceased victim had been wrapped in a tarp and lit on fire.
Despite extensive injuries, police determined their victim is an African-American male, approximately 5 feet 3 inches tall.
Even though the remains had been burned and charred, you could tell that there was a bullet hole in the left temple area of the head.
It was apparent that they were dealing with a homicide.
Police search the area around the body and find no obvious signs of a struggle.
You can imagine that if somebody was alive in that situation, they would be flailing and there would be a tremendous amount of turmoil in that area, and there was none of that.
Paulding County quickly realized that this body had been dumped at this site and had been lit on fire post-mortem, probably because the perpetrators were trying to cover up the crime and distance themselves from what they had done.
You see these types of killings or these types of body dumps a lot of times with the cartel or mafia, where people aren't just killed, they're killed and then they're burned. So I thought he had to be linked to something that would be so bad to where these people had killed him and mutilated his body. They searched the area around the remains and they searched the actual remains themselves, and they did not find any identification or anything that could help identify that person at the scene.
Our coroner did contact the GBI and requested an autopsy for this decedent to give us more information to proceed with the investigation.
In the meantime, authorities turn to reports of missing persons in search of a match for their John Doe.
The GBI agent who was assisting us with this case was viewing the local news and saw a family on the local news making a broadcast about a missing person. It's a very short male matching the description of the human remains that were discovered in Paulding County. The missing person was a Howard Sewell.
We kind of put it together that this could very well be, in fact, our person.
Howard Louis Sewell Jr. was born on May 29, 1981 in Vicenza, Italy.
My parents both were in the Army, and they were stationed in Italy, and that is how Howard came about.
Faith and Howard were close. They played together all the time when they were younger, and he was a protector too, so he
was like our little watch man, watched over us at all times, and he was always comforting for us.
Howard remained close to his sisters throughout his life. In his 30s, he and his sister Faith shared an apartment in Smyrna, about 10 miles from downtown Atlanta. They also found jobs together at a beauty salon.
He was the housekeeper, but he was the best. It goes more beyond the task. It was just the amount of effort and pride he put into his work. It was inspiring.
Howard was the MVP, and that was because he treated us like each of us were part of his family, and he was simply taking care of us.
He loved working around the people that he was with. He had a lot of good people, positive people. I could say that his second family were the people on his job.
On the eve of his 35th birthday, Howard Sewell's future looked bright.
When I saw him on that Thursday, he asked if we could move his birthday party from Sunday to Monday. He said that he had plans. I said, "Oh, Howard, that sounds like a lady." And he just smiled and kind of grinned.
But that was the last time any of Howard's friends or family heard from him.
On Tuesday, mid-morning, the location that he worked at actually called me and said, "Hey, we've tried calling Howard. He was a no-call, no-show, and that's very unusual for him. So I tried calling him multiple times, and I didn't get an answer. I know my brother, and I know he wouldn't ignore my calls unless something was going on, something was wrong, and it just didn't feel right with me."
Faith called me. She said, "Mama, I don't want to worry you or scare you, but Junior didn't show up for work today, and he's not at his apartment." She said, "I've been calling him all day. I can't reach him." Me being a mother, immediately I know my son. And at that particular time, I have to say that my heart dropped. My heart actually dropped. Because I know him, and I knew something was wrong. That's when we dropped everything and went to the police to file a missing persons report.
Local agency, Cobb County Police Department, documented the last time that they saw and spoke with him and began their investigation. They also wanted to get some stats on him, how much he weighed, how tall he was, so that they could circulate that around the metro Atlanta area in the hopes that we could discover where Howard had gone.
Days passed with no news or leads on Howard's whereabouts. Then County, Georgia, find the remains of an unidentified male matching Howard's description. Detectives contact Howard's family.
They said they found a body, and I was very hopeful that it wasn't him. I was just like, I hope it's not him. It just can't be him.
They asked us a lot of questions about Howard, about his job, about where he lived, and all the things that he did.
The family made it very clear to us that this is not like Howard and that he would not go a length of time without speaking to his family, whether it be by phone or in person. He was very involved with his family.
On June 6th, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation conducts an autopsy on their victim.
The autopsy was rather revealing. We learned very quickly that he had died from multiple gunshot wounds, at least 4 gunshot wounds.
They could also tell from the recovery of the projectiles that this was done with a 9mm handgun.
The autopsy also confirms the family's worst fears.
Looking at dental records, the GBI was able to confirm for us that indeed this was Howard's body.
The police called, and they gave us the information, and that was probably the moment I remember, probably the most.
He said, Mrs. Inman, are you all together? I said, yes, we're all together. And he said, the coroner just came back into the room, and he has informed us that the body that found is your son's body.
At that point, I lost my breath. Like, I almost began hyperventilating. I remember it just vividly, getting out of the car and screaming, and literally screaming to the top of my lungs.
We stood at the truck, screaming and crying, and hurting, because that was my only son. It hit hard, and somebody had taken my baby from me.
Coming up, an anonymous tipster comes forward. And the investigation uncovers a sordid romance with sinister intentions.
He kind of had a bad boy thing going on that she liked, and she really started spending all of her time with him.
They fell in love with each other.
Investigators in Paulding County and both law enforcement and Howard's family are desperately searching for answers on why someone would do this.
We were torn into pieces because of the way he was done, more than anything. The way he was abandoned, and left there to die.
When we learn that this is Howard, we have to go back and look at his victimology even closer. We have to look at his last footprint, if you will, where he was seen, who he was talking to.
Just hours after Howard has been identified, his family meets with detectives at headquarters.
They indicated to us that the last day that they talked to him was his birthday, May 29th.
I called my brother that morning, kind of early, and wished him a happy birthday. And he hadn't really woke up yet, so I was like, I'm sorry, I just wanted to tell you happy birthday. I told him, I'll let you sleep, and you just call me when you wake up.
It was on Sunday, as a matter of fact. After church, I gave him a call. I said, what are you going to do today? He said, I'm going to rest for a while, and then I'm going to get up, I'm going to clean up my apartment, and then I have a date.
He planned on meeting up with a young lady that he had met online who was from Virginia, but that's about as much information that investigators were able to ascertain.
I didn't question him about the young lady that he was going out with.
That's when the family reveals they had received a disturbing phone call from an anonymous woman earlier that morning.
She told us she had overheard some guys talking about my brother, and one of them was her boyfriend. I put her on speakerphone for my mom and my sister to hear because we were all sitting together. And my sister took her phone out and she was like, just record. She explained to us that she had a son and that she was expecting at that moment. And if it was her child, she would want someone to come forth with information to help her find her child.
The family tells detectives that the caller said Howard had planned to meet a woman for a date the night of his birthday.
Yeah, they're gonna set him up. Okay.
They set him up, and I guess, they all got to fighting or whatever.
Okay.
And I asked her, and I, by then, was just, tears were flowing, and I said, did they kill my brother?
Did you ask me honestly, did they kill my brother? I'm sorry. I just want to know if they killed my brother. Please, I need to know. know.
I actually got on the phone with her, and I said, sweetheart, this is Sonia. I'm Howard's mother. And I said, I really need to know all that you know as to what happened that night.
He's my only son, and I am so proud of you for coming forward. I can see it. I know you're scared, but look, we are Christian people, and we will promise you we're going to ask God's protection upon you.
As detectives listened to the recording, they learned Howard's death might be connected to a man in neighboring Cobb County.
Our homicide team learned that Howard Sewell had went to an apartment in the Marietta area, and the apartment belonged to a person that this source identified as Chris Hanna's.
While the informant never reveals her name, she indicates she's a friend of Chris Hanna.
We immediately contacted the Marietta Police Department and give them this information, and they were able to research and locate Mr. Hanna's apartment and learned of several calls to that apartment.
Detectives discovered that in the early morning hours of May 30th, the same night that Howard went missing, a 911 call had summoned Marietta police to Chris Hanna's apartment building.
The law enforcement had not only been called to that apartment complex, but actually called to Christopher Hanna's apartment on the night in question due to a fireworks or shots fired complaint. Officers investigated the exterior area of the apartment complex, but was unable to determine if shots were fired or if they were fireworks.
The police went back into service. Nothing came of it.
But detectives learned that later that same night, Marietta police became involved in another incident involving Chris Hanna.
They received a second call from an officer that was working a part-time job at the local hospital. The officer had people got out of that car. One of them had been shot.
Less than a week after police in Paulding County, Georgia, found the body of 35-year-old Howard Sewell, his family struggles to cope with the tragic loss.
We weren't able to have a proper funeral for my brother. You know, there was nobody there for us to even glance at one last time.
We decided as a family not to even buy a casket to put any charred remains in, because that wasn't my boy. That was not him. So we ended up cremating his body. We weren't able to really say goodbye.
Thanks to a tip from an anonymous informant, detectives believe they have connected Howard's death to a man named Chris Hanna. Police have also just learned that Chris Hanna was involved in a second shooting the same night Howard disappeared, and that the victim had been treated at a local hospital.
He had sustained gunshot wounds to his arm and his leg, however, that they were non-life-threatening.
The gentleman that was shot, he was identified as Omar Saviar. The female was identified as Tadeja Clark. The male who had driven the car was Chris Hanna.
Detectives learned that an officer working on duty at the hospital that evening had attempted to question the group, but they were unwilling to provide many details.
Marietta detectives told us that they did not buy the story that they were given. However, there were not many leads to pursue at that time.
When the uniformed officer went out to the car to look inside the car, right dead center in between the two front seats, he saw the butt of the 9mm handgun sticking out.
Marietta detectives contacted Chris and said, "You have a handgun in plain view in your car," and his words to them was, "It's not mine. Go ahead and take it."
At that point in time, it was abandoned property.
The firearm and the vehicle were seized by police that night on May the 30th.
Police had no reason to hold Chris or Tadeja, so they left the hospital, and Omar Savior was treated and released the next day.
But police still had very little information about the shooting. And now, authorities from Paulding County, Marietta, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation theorized that
to the police that Chris Hanna was somehow involved. We now had 2 additional names of people that might be involved as well, Omar Savior and Thaddeusha Clark.
We created BOLOs or lookout forms for those people, and then they were sent out to various agencies in the metro Atlanta area.
We were now gathering all the information and intelligence that we could pertaining to Chris, Omar, and Thaddeusha. We searched all of the social media that each of the 3 may have.
What we learned about Chris Hanna is that he lived at an apartment complex here in Marietta. His profession was working as a personal trainer at a local gym.
Chris Hanna met Thaddeusha through the gym.
Detectives learned that 20-year-old Thaddeusha Clark had moved to Atlanta from Hampton, Virginia 5 years earlier.
I looked into Thaddeusha Clark quite extensively. She was living with Chris Hanna. She was actually, at the time of this investigation, was taking classes at a local community college on how to become a mortician.
Detectives also connect Thaddeusha to 21-year-old Omar Savior.
Omar and Thaddeusha were involved in a romantic relationship.
What we knew about Omar, he wasn't from around here. We knew he was from the Pennsylvania area.
We believe that due to the arrest or some criminal activity that he had there, he actually left Pittsburgh, fleeing from that area and coming to Georgia to try to start a new life.
It seemed like he had actually only been in this area for a very short period of time. He was basically homeless.
Omar didn't really seem to have a steady job or home. He did have family in the area, but they couldn't really tell police much. He seemed to honestly be drifting through when he met Thaddeusha.
Authorities run a background check on Thaddeusha and discover her record is clean. When detectives reach out to her friends and family, they're surprised to learn police are searching for the 20-year-old college student.
Thaddeusha, she was like the smart person, then it was like everybody else. She never really been the type of person to follow anybody, you know. She had a lot of energy. She was open to a lot of people. I mean, she stayed to herself at the same time, but never really had problems.
But what did Thaddeusha, Omar, and Chris have to do with Howard Sewell's murder? Detectives scour Howard Sewell's phone records in the hopes they'll find a connection to the trio.
We knew from Howard's sister he intended to meet up with a young lady from Virginia. Once we were able to get those records from the provider, we were able to see that he was indeed in communication with Thaddeusha Clark.
Howard planned to meet Thaddeusha for a date.
We know that he also contacted the taxi cab company in the early morning hours of May the 30th. He had gone to the area of Roswell Road near this apartment complex where Chris Hanna and Thaddeusha lived.
That was the last time Howard Sewell placed a telephone call.
We were very concerned at this point that this was going to be our homicide location.
On June 10th, investigators serve a search warrant at Chris Hanna and Thaddeusha Clark's apartment.
We gathered the city of Marietta SWAT team together because we did not know what was potentially there or who was potentially there.
We knew that the people responsible for Howard's death had a strong propensity for violence. So dynamic entry was made into the residence.
I can remember the SWAT team exiting the apartment with a dumbfounded look on their face. And I said, "What's going on?" One of the SWAT team members looked at me and said, "There's nobody here and there's nothing in the house."
Coming up, a forensic search leads investigators to discover a key piece of evidence left behind by the suspects.
I can remember the crime scene technician walking over to the bench and opening the bench up, and I looked inside and it was full of blood.
And the manhunt for the missing suspects leads to a shocking tell-all confession.
The next thing he recalled was hearing gunshots, waking up to the sound of these gunshots.
Seems like they want to burn him and say a prayer or some shit.
Georgia, homicide detectives are searching the apartment of Chris Hanna and Tadesha Clark, where they believe 35-year-old Howard Sewell was shot and killed on May 30th, 2016.
The apartment was abnormally clean. There was no furniture. Each room had a very strong odor of bleach or cleaning solution in it, which raised a huge red flag in my investigation.
Police were able to recover projectiles, bullets from the wall. They also found some shell casings that had been missed during the cleanup process.
Those projectiles were then linked back to a 9mm handgun.
Which was very significant because we know that Mr. Sewell was killed with a 9mm, and that a 9mm firearm had been found in the car that Chris Hanna had.
As detectives continue processing the apartment, they make a crucial discovery in one of the few remaining pieces of furniture.
It appeared to be a piano bench. I can remember the crime scene technician walking over to the bench and opening the bench up, and I looked inside, and it was full of blood. There was blood that had leaked down, like the lid was open, and then the blood was leaking down into, or leaching into, the middle of the piano bench. We took swabs from the blood located in the bench, and that blood was later matched to Howard Sewell.
Now you have DNA, shell casings, and projectiles from the back room of this apartment. We all but confirmed that the shooting happened at this apartment, and this is where Howard was actually killed.
Unfortunately, there are no signs in the apartment of where the suspects had fled. Then, 5 days later, on June 15th, detectives receive word that one of the 3 suspects has been taken into custody, but on unrelated charges.
As it happens, Omar was arrested for an unrelated assault charge in a neighboring city.
We were contacted by another agency stating that Omar Saviar was actually in custody in our local jail, and I decided that we were going to go interview Mr. Saviar.
When detectives sit down with Omar for a formal interview, the 21-year-old is less than cooperative.
Police did bring up Howard Sewell by name to Omar and asked if this was somehow related to this missing persons report and the discovery of Howard's body in the neighboring county. He denied any involvement in it whatsoever.
You could tell that he was getting mad. He was getting frustrated with us asking these questions until the point to where he just said, I don't want to talk to you guys anymore. I want to go back to my jail cell. I need to talk to an attorney. And we ended the interview right after that.
Omar essentially shut down, but police let him know in no uncertain terms that they believed he was involved in this fatal shooting and that charges could be forthcoming.
2 days later, investigators catch another big break.
Chris Hanna got picked up on a pandering charge. We found that he was in jail. So we attempted to interview Mr. Hanna about our investigation.
Chris volunteered to speak with us. When we met with him, we went through essentially his life history, and we went all the way up to the point of this case.
Chris is giving background into his relationship with Tadesha. They had actually been friends and roommates for several years, but Omar had just recently come into the picture a few weeks ago.
Other and had an interest in each other. She found out that Omar was homeless. She then in turn went to Chris Hanna, who she was living with, and requested that he allow Omar Saviar to either stay on the couch or in this back sunroom.
Chris tells detectives that while the relationship between Tadesha and Omar was new, the couple had already formed an unbreakable bond.
I think what she was trying to do is she was trying to help Omar feel like he had a family, like he had some self-worth, because she saw good in him. And in turn, he took care of her. He protected her. They fell in love with each other.
When detectives press Chris information about what happened in his apartment the morning of May 30th, he doesn't mention anything about the murder of Howard Sewell. But he does go into detail about how Omar Saviar was shot. According to Chris, he was asleep when the shooting occurred.
Chris Hanna articulated to detectives that he had gotten so drunk the night of the shooting, he actually went and passed out in his room. The next thing he recalled was hearing gunshots, waking up to the sound of these gunshots, and seeing Omar run into the room where he said, "She shot me," she being Deja Clark.
He said, "She shot me, she shot me. I need to go to the hospital, take me to the hospital." He just kept saying, "Take me to the hospital, take me to the hospital." I'm like, "All right, man, chill out. Just get out of the room and I'll take you to the hospital."
Christopher stated to me in the interview that it took him a second to gather his thoughts. He didn't really know what was going on, but he knew that Omar was hurt, he was shot, and he needed help. So he stated that he had gotten up out of bed and they drove to the hospital.
Chris explains that after dropping Omar off at the ER, he and Tadesha returned home.
Once Chris and Deja got back to the apartment, this is when Chris said that he first realized that Howard had been shot in the back room.
Chris tells police he had no idea who Howard Sewell was, but he assumed Tadesha had killed him after she made several bizarre comments.
Tadesha's telling me how she's, "Oh, I can't wait to embalm this guy."
She mentions to you that she may want to embalm this guy.
She told me she did or something. She said she did something like poured bleach in his mouth or something. I don't know.
She told you that?
Yeah. Or that she wanted to or something. Something of that nature. She said she wanted to embalm the guy.
Did she ever talk to you about any of this before? I mean, obviously she said that she was...
She said she wanted to be a mortician, but that was as far as it went.
I think she just wanted to play with a dead body, and she's crazy. He became afraid of her. However, he wanted this body out of his house, and so he assisted her in wrapping the body, packaging it, and they worked together to load this body under the cover of night, and they removed the body from the apartment complex.
Did you guys have this predetermined location, or did you just drive along and you're like...
Just driving along, and she decided whatever, just stop here.
It's at that point that Deja had actually lit the tarp with Howard's body inside on fire.
She's like, "I want to burn him and say her prayer or some shit."
He described her activity as very bizarre. Dancing around Howard's body while it was burning in a ritualistic manner. He decided to get back in the car and just wait on her.
Once Chris and Deja Clark had abandoned Howard's body in the field, they quickly went back to Chris's apartment so that they can continue the cleanup.
Chris claims that the next morning, Tadesha left.
Tadesha had packed up her things and left the apartment. Chris left the apartment, and Chris said he hadn't seen Omar since they left the hospital. So at this point, he couldn't say where anyone had gone.
Following his confession, police charge Chris with concealing a death. They also continue their search for Tadesha Clark, putting pressure on her known associates to help bring her to justice.
Undoubtedly, word got back to Deja that police were quickly honing in on her.
Lieutenant Mike Hill and I were in my office at the City of Marietta Department when we received a telephone call, and I just so happened to answer the phone, and it was Deja Clark.
She said, "Hey, I know you guys are looking for me. It's time for us to meet and talk."
Coming up, detectives finally hear Tadesha's side of the story, but what she reveals changes everything police thought they knew about the case.
Howard was kind of in a fight for his life, and he managed to get the upper hand on Omar.
2 weeks after the murder of Howard Sewell Jr., 20-year-old Tadesha Clark surrenders to law enforcement.
We met with her at a place of business in a parking lot, and we conducted an interview with her.
Tadesha starts her story by admitting her apartment under false pretenses. He was intended to be the first of several victims that Omar and Tadesha had planned to target.
What was revealed through the interview with Deja was that this was a scam. that their whole intent was to lure people to this apartment so that they could rob them of their money. And that Thadasia had met Howard online. She had made some promises to him. Howard showed up at this apartment, thought that he was going to celebrate his birthday, thought that he was going to maybe hook up with Thadasia. So initially it was amicable. They were kind of flirty with each other. And then all of a sudden, Thadasia and Omar pulled a gun on him and started trying to rob him.
Omar starts demanding money from Howard Sewell. I believe Howard Sewell felt that he didn't have any other recourse. He attacked Omar Savior.
Omar was significantly bigger than Howard. Howard was kind of in a fight for his life, and he managed to get the upper hand on Omar such that Omar actually lost the gun during this physical fight. Thadasia picked up the gun at Omar's request.
She said that Omar instructed her to shoot Howard. She picked up the gun and began shooting.
She mistakenly struck Omar, but she also struck Howard a couple of times as well. And it's at that point that Howard was incapacitated enough that Omar could retrieve the firearm. He fired the fatal shot into Howard's head.
In interviewing Thadasia, she discloses to us that once Howard is killed and that he is lifeless there on the bench that we had found during the first search warrant, that Omar essentially removes all of Howard's personal effects, part of which is $400 in cash. And when asked about her receiving any of those funds, she explains to us that she didn't get any of the money.
He never gave Thadasia Clark any money. He took all the money, kept it for himself.
At the conclusion of the interview that we did take Thadasia into custody, and she was ultimately charged with felony murder.
Based on her confession, authorities charged Thadasia Clark and Omar Savior with malice murder, felony murder, and concealing a death.
We felt grateful that they had now been arrested, but we also were angry. We were upset. We wanted justice to be served.
In April 2018, nearly 2 years after the murder of Howard Sewell Jr., Thadasia Clark appears in court for a pretrial hearing.
Ultimately, she pled guilty to murder. She also agreed that she would testify against Omar.
3 months later, on the eve of his trial, Omar Savior also pleads guilty.
Chris Hanna was also convicted. His lesser offenses, he received a total sentence of 15 years with 8 years to serve, the balance on probation.
Omar and Thadasia were sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole.
I think they were equally responsible in this case. I don't believe they could have done it without the other because they utilized Thadasia to lure Howard Sewell, and Omar handled the robbery aspect. I think that they both had sinister intentions in this case, and they relied on each other to carry it out.
I felt like she got into a relationship and was probably so deep in love with this person that she would do whatever. It's kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde situation. Maybe she had a certain type of feeling for this guy that I'ma stick with you through thick and thin and do whatever, ride or die type of situation.
It's heartbreaking to know that you have someone out here that can be so cruel. Howard was always the person that was the calm in the storm. And so they robbed the earth of someone that was the calm in the storm. I want this message to get out. I want people to hear about this. I want them to learn, to be cautious in situations. If you're doing online dating, be very cautious. Just understand that your life is precious, and that you need to be careful.
They were single parents celebrating a second chance at romance.
He was very kind and very romantic.
They were happily married. They loved their blended family. They loved their home.
but a violent intrusion would destroy their happily ever after.
He had been severely beaten and possibly stabbed.
I wanted to know who did it. I wanted them to pay.
The hunt for a killer will reveal heart-wrenching betrayals and lead law enforcement to uncover a conspiracy between multiple people and a killer couple with sinister intentions.
Each of those young men made a choice to get involved, but the genesis of the entire depravity and violence began with their affair.
She got all these people caught up in her web of lies, secrets, and deceit.
He wanted a life with her, and the only way he knew to get it was to kill this guy.
To carry out a plan like this is just diabolical, just flat out evil.
In the heart of the eastern seaboard lies the coastal city of Virginia Beach.
Virginia Beach has a large Navy presence, and so there is a tremendous amount of suburban housing, literally thousands of apartment buildings that are built to house the Navy personnel.
On July 29th, 1991, local authorities receive a frantic 911 call from one of those apartments at 2:20 a.m.
Virginia Beach Police Department Communications received a call from a woman indicating that something has happened, that her neighbor had come to her door, screaming hysterically.
The caller identifies her neighbor as 35-year-old Robin Radcliffe.
She didn't know exactly what was going on, but she noticed that Mrs. Radcliffe's pajamas were bloodied, but she told the police that there might have been an assault.
Dispatchers quickly route all available units to the apartment complex. A Virginia Beach police officer is the first to arrive on scene.
When he arrived at the scene, Mrs. Radcliffe was sitting on the living room floor by her son.
They get there, and she's hysterical. She's covered in blood. Where did the blood come from? Then she
went into the master bedroom, which was at the end of the hallway. He found a man laying in bed, and he appeared to be semi-conscious, grasping to get breath, and it appeared that he had been severely beaten and possibly stabbed.
He's unresponsive, but still alive, obviously still alive, and so they're calling in EMTs.
They tried to stabilize him, and then they immediately got him out to an ambulance and transported him to Centera Norfolk General Hospital.
As backup arrives, Robin Radcliffe identifies the victim as her husband, 37-year-old James Radcliffe.
Mrs. Radcliffe had told the officer that she was laying in bed and she was awakened by somebody attacking her husband, and that she was put down on the floor and held down on the floor while he was being attacked. The officer asked her how many people she thought had entered their apartment, and she said 2 or 3 people. She wasn't certain, but she didn't have any idea who attacked her husband.
There are obviously a lot of questions about what happened and why it happened.
The main factor, of course, is whether or not you know who did it immediately. Frequently, in these kinds of cases, it's going to be somebody who's known to the victim, especially given the fact that James was the only one assaulted, and there were 2 other people in the apartment at the time, Robin and her 13-year-old son.
Before life had brought James and Robin Radcliffe to Virginia Beach, James had spent nearly 2 decades building a respectable reputation in the U.S. Navy.
He was a family man. He was previously married. He had 2 boys from his previous marriage, and he was a real loving, caring type of man, very responsible at work.
Originally from Aspermont, Texas, James met his first wife, Sandy, when they were still teenagers.
He was very kind and very romantic. He was the type of guy that he opened up the door for you, pulled out the chair when you wanted to sit down, go into a restaurant. And it was just his kindness that drew me to him.
In the early 70s, James graduated from high school and enlisted in the military.
James was a management specialist in the Navy. His job at that time was to cook for the officers and the captain of the boat. It was great adventures together, traveling with the Navy, seeing new places. Our oldest son, Spencer, was born in Charleston, South Carolina. Nathan was born in Puerto Rico.
I was Daddy's little boy. We did sports together. He was always my coach. He was funny, goofy. To me, he was probably the best dad in the whole world.
In 1983, the family landed in Pensacola, Florida. But life in the Navy meant James was often away from his wife and 2 sons.
Sometimes you drift apart. And it's hard at times to find that connection to get back together.
In October 1987, after 16 years together, Sandy and James decided to divorce.
I remember when my parents, told me and my brother that they were divorced, and we were basically, why can't y'all live together, whatever. I think we were heartbroken.
Around the same time, James met 29-year-old Robin Gaddy in Florida.
James met Robin in a bar where one of his relatives worked, and I'm assuming since James and I were separated at the time, he felt lonely.
Originally from Utah, Robin had moved to Florida to start over after 2 failed marriages.
She had 2 kids, a daughter and a son. She seemed like a nice person, and I assumed she was drawn to him because of his sweet personality and his kindness and his outgoingness and being able to joke about things.
After a whirlwind romance, Robin and James decided to tie the knot.
Within a couple of months, they were married.
It seemed like my dad and Robin were happy.
James continued to juggle family life with a demanding job.
He got transferred to Virginia, and when he got transferred up there, it was hard for us to go up there to see him.
By July of 1991, an end to all of James's hard work was in sight. Following a recent deployment, James was only 7 months away from retirement.
His dream was when he retired from the Navy, he wanted to become a chef and work in a big restaurant.
In his mind, he must have been dreaming about that next career. He must have been on cloud 9.
But less than 2 weeks later, James Radcliffe's dreams have been shattered. As critically wounded.
When you open up the door to the master bedroom, the master bed itself was completely saturated with blood. There was blood spatter all over the headboard, the back of the wall, both sides of the bed and pillows.
One of the evidence technicians was a blood spatter expert, and so from the blood spatter that was found on the wall and on the ceiling in the bedroom, he was able to determine that at least one sharp-edged object was used to stab James, and at least one blunt-edged object was used to strike James.
The telephone had been ripped away from the nightstand, and it appeared to be completely disconnected. There were some other things that were thrown about, the clothes on the floor.
We knew there was some motive behind this naturally, but we didn't know exactly what. And that's where we jumped into it and started trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. One of the theories would be that this was a burglary, and that the burglary did go wrong. It went awry.
There was 2 items that were reported missing by Robin Radcliffe from the residence. Her husband's wallet and his credit cards were taken from the master bedroom.
The front door opens into the living room of the apartment. There was a stand upon which there was a TV, and it was apparent that something that had been connected to the TV was missing.
walking through a crime scene, one of the things that you're looking for is points of entry and points of exit.
There were 3 bedrooms in the apartment. A master bedroom, which is where James and Robin stayed. There was a bedroom where Robin's son stayed, and then there was another bedroom.
When we looked in there, the dresser was pulled away from the wall and away from the window. The window was open and the curtains were hanging outside the window.
There was no damage to get into through that window. No signs that the lock had been jimmied.
It very well could have happened, where a burglar could have found a window that was unlocked, entered to steal what he or she could, and then attack Mr. Radcliffe.
Coming up, police receive new information that takes the case in a whole new direction.
James told one of his shipmates that somebody threatened him, and so he felt afraid for his life.
And a new clue casts
a pregnant woman, and that strikes my interest immediately. You kind of realize that there's a good likelihood what we have here is a love triangle.
Seven-year-old Navyman James Radcliffe is in grave condition after he was violently attacked in his bed, while his wife Robin was held down by another assailant.
When I arrived at the scene, Robin had already left and gone to the hospital. She'd already changed her clothes as well and left bloody pajamas behind. Anytime we have bloody potential evidence, we collect it.
Since the victim, his wife, and her 13-year-old son are all at the hospital, investigators turn to another source of information within the family.
I went back outside because Mrs. Radcliffe's daughter, Tina, and her husband, Michael Bourne, were waiting out there. Both told me that they had received a call from her brother right after the incident happened. He told them that something had happened to James, and they needed to come over to the apartment. Tina told me that her mother and stepfather had been married for approximately 4 years. They seemed to be a loving couple, cared for each other. She told me that her stepfather had just returned from a 6-week deployment on July the 18th.
Tina tells detectives that she and her husband came to dinner at the apartment earlier that night. When they left for their apartment around 11 p.m., nothing seemed amiss.
She generally seemed extremely upset about what had happened. She couldn't give me any reason at all why somebody would break into the house and beat her stepfather like this.
While detectives are still gathering information at the scene, they receive a devastating call from the hospital.
I received a call from the midnight detective that was with Mrs. Radcliffe at Norfolk General Hospital, and he advised me that James Radcliffe had succumbed to his injuries and had died. Since James Radcliffe was employed with the U.S. Navy, we notified NCIS.
2 Navy officers showed up. They told me that James had been murdered. I called the 2 boys next to me, and I set them down, and I told them their dad had passed. And there was anger, there was sadness.
It sucked. It hurt. I wanted them to pay for taking my dad from me.
The case is designated a homicide investigation, and James Radcliffe's body is transported to the medical examiner's office for a full autopsy.
The medical examiner indicated that there was multiple blunt force trauma to his head, and that he had at least 3 stab wounds, 2 on the right side, 1 on the right front torso area, the other one in the back. The cause of death was from blood loss and aspiration, actually breathing in his own blood.
police know, as do police reporters and journalists know, most murderers don't kill people up close. And when they do, there's normally a personal relationship or a personal vendetta. This was a personal crime.
Given the personal nature of the homicide, detectives circled back to James's grieving widow, Robin Radcliffe, for more information.
Mrs. Radcliffe arrived at police headquarters. I tell her at the time that I know it's a terrible time to have to ask her a lot of questions, but I'd like to go through what happened this Sunday evening. She said Tina and Michael stayed there and watched television with them until about 11, 12 o'clock, and then they left, went back to their apartment. And that her son went to bed, and Robin and James retired for the evening.
Robin said that she had taken some sleeping pills, and she was sleeping soundly, and all of a sudden she's awakened by rough, deep voices, and she gets knocked off the bed onto the floor.
She was laying face down on the floor, and that person actually put his foot on her back, she said, to hold her down and told her don't move, and it sounded to her like a man's voice.
She said she didn't get a good look at anyone. She was horrified. She was panicking and didn't know what to do.
She assumed by her feet there was 2 or 3 people in the apartment.
When she was sure the intruders had left, Robin tells detectives that she rushed to her husband's aid and realized his injuries were extensive.
Robin ran to the phone, picked it up, and it was dead. She couldn't dial 911, so she ran out screaming for someone to help her, someone to call for help.
After the neighbor called 911, Mrs. Radcliffe realized that, oh my God, she left her son in the apartment. So she ran back into the apartment, into his room, which fortunately he slept through the entire incident and wasn't awake.
Detectives asked Robin about her relationship with her husband.
Robin told police that they were happily married, that they loved their blended family, they loved their home, they loved living in Virginia Beach, and that there was no problems.
She genuinely appeared to be somebody that was grieving and wanted to be helpful to try to give me as much information as possible so I can find out who's responsible for her husband's death.
In the midst of the interview, investigators suddenly received new information from the Naval Criminal Intelligence Service.
We had notified NCIS that James Radcliffe had died, and they were making death notification to his command. And the command, some of the shipmates, had told them that James Radcliffe, just about a week ago, had a fight. James told one of his shipmates that somebody actually threatened him, and so he felt afraid for his life. I contacted James Radcliffe's command, his ship, the USS Comte de Grasse, and talked to some of his close friend shipmates to see what James Radcliffe had been telling them.
Soon after James returned home from a 6-week Navy deployment, friends say he got into a physical altercation with another Navyman, 34-year-old Gary Hinojosa.
The very day that he returned home, this guy Gary was sitting in his apartment, and he confronted his wife about who was this guy sitting in his apartment. She tried to pawn it off that, oh, he's a friend of Michael, who is, Tina's husband. Well, Michael's only 19 years old. And James Radcliffe eventually said that he kept prompting his wife about this Gary, and she finally admitted that she was having an affair with him while he was deployed.
There was a confrontation between Gary Hinojosa and James Radcliffe, an altercation over the situation with Robin Radcliffe.
Early on in the investigation, there's a lot of red flags that are going on. I know that Mrs. Radcliffe is withholding a lot of information. She's lying to me about what's going on in their relationship between her and her husband, and that things are much more complicated.
less than 24 hours after James Radcliffe was killed during a violent home invasion, Virginia Beach police have learned that he had been involved in that his wife, Robin, was having an extramarital affair while he was deployed.
They had a fight. He described the fight as being more like a wrestling match. And then after the fight, they went separate ways. But there was a lot of tension between James and his wife, Robin.
Detectives circle back to their interview with Robin Radcliffe, but they don't confront her with the new information right away.
She had driven her car to police headquarters. And so I asked her, I said, you mind if I take a look in your car? Just, you never know what you're going to find. And the car is out there, and so I thought I'd just take advantage of the situation.
Robin immediately provides detectives with her car keys. Inside, they make a telling discovery.
When I did a search on her car, I found in the glove compartment a Hallmark card. On the front of it, the card is a pregnant woman. And that strikes my interest immediately, so I open it up, and it's addressed to Robin.
And it's a love note from someone named Gary, saying, "You're carrying my baby." Well, this immediately changes everything.
Within a very short period of time, we realized that the Gary that was on the card was most likely this Gary Hinojosa. You kind of realize that good likelihood what we have here is a love triangle. I brought that card back into headquarters and confronted Mrs. Radcliffe about this particular card. And after looking at it, she said, "Yes, I was lying to you. I did have an affair while my husband was deployed, and I believe that I'm pregnant with this man's child."
As detectives confront Robin, they receive another unexpected surprise.
Just so happens that this Gerardo Hinojosa showed up. He says that he's friends of Robin Radcliffe, and he's there to pick up Mrs. Radcliffe to give her some support since they just found out that James had passed away.
Police seize the opportunity to talk with Gary Hinojosa. He agrees and sits down with detectives for a formal interview.
Gary Hinojosa was stationed at Oceana in Virginia Beach, and he worked with Robin Radcliffe's son-in-law, Michael Bourne. And Michael's wife, Tina, who is Robin's daughter, and Robin met. Gary was smitten at first sight.
He admits that they had an affair that's been going on while James was deployed. And we told him that we also were aware that there was a fight between him and James, and he admitted to the fight, but said after the fight that they shook hands and they went separate ways.
Gary claims that Robin had ended their months-long love affair to focus on her marriage to James. Their suspicions growing, detectives ask Gary if he has an alibi for the night of James Radcliffe's murder.
He said that he was at his house all evening long, and he said that Tina, who is Robin's daughter, and her husband, Michael Bourne, had just moved into his house with him that weekend. And he said that they sat and watched television throughout the night, and he believes that all of them went to bed somewhere around 1 o'clock in the morning.
Detectives confirm with Tina and Michael Bourne that Gary is their roommate.
I talked to Tina and Michael Bourne, and they told me that once they left Robin's apartment and went back over to Gary's house, so he had people to alibi him out.
Without any evidence to hold them, police release Robin Radcliffe and Gary Hinojosa.
We knew that there was a connection between them. We suspected that there was a lot more to this story, that they were not giving up. Within a few days after that, the family went to Texas for the funeral. So there's a couple of days I'm not able to talk to them at all.
4 days after his murder, James Radcliffe is laid to rest in his hometown of Aspermont, Texas.
My oldest one took it the hardest, taking them to the funeral and them actually having to see their father in a coffin. Actually having to see their father being buried in the ground. It was hard on me, but I know it was the hardest on them.
1 month passes without any leads in James Radcliffe's murder. Then, on August 29th, 1991, a local newspaper publishes an article that gives the case new life.
I'm at work at the Virginia Beach Bureau of the Virginian Pilot, and Robin calls me. And she goes on a vent about how the police have mistreated her. They're accusing her of hiring people to kill her husband. She says, how would I even know how to go about doing that? I don't know how to hire him here.
I never confronted her with that. I never asked her about anything like that. And I knew right then that they must have hired somebody. For her to say that, they must have hired somebody. That's a slip of the tongue that she never should have said. So we were probably looking for a murder for hire situation.
Coming up, as detectives begin building a case against Robin Radcliffe, a shocking revelation will open the door to multiple suspects and an unexpected motive.
He wants to rationalize what he's done. And so he says, there's a good reason why I hired these people to kill James Radcliffe.
That blew everybody's mind. How could you be so callous?
One month after the murder of James Radcliffe, police suspect his widow Robin and her lover Gary Hinojosa were involved. So far, there has been little evidence to connect either of them. But following Robin's plea to the media, detectives decide to take a closer look at her daughter and son-in-law, Tina and Michael Bourne, in the hopes that they might know something.
Michael and Tina Bourne were living with Gary. So we devised a plan that what we were going to do is all the players that we knew, we're going to bring them in one at a time and talk to them, starting with Tina and Michael Bourne, because they seemed to be the weakest link in the group. So on September 3rd, I called Michael Bourne up, and I told him that I needed to talk to him and Tina. I needed them to come down to police headquarters. He said, yes, that's no problem. They'll be down there. As soon as they arrived there, we separated them, put them in 2 separate rooms. And I talked to Tina. I told her that you need to tell me the truth, what happened.
Under extreme pressure from law enforcement, Tina comes clean.
She said her mother had come to her and said that they were thinking about killing James. That Gary Hinojosa had set it up that the person that he hired to do the killing was Mario Murphy.
In another interrogation room, Michael also cooperates. According to Michael, Mario Murphy is a friend of Gary's. Mario had also enlisted the help of his friend, 17-year-old Aaron Turner, to commit the crime.
Mario's friend was there and agreed to go ahead and go along with this burglary killing. And they had set it all up. They put on dark clothing, gloves. They had, as they were getting prepared and talking about this, Gary Hinojosa's roommate shows up, Jamie Hall, and he's hearing what's going on and gets excited and says that he'll go along.
Michael Bourne was the driver of the vehicle. He brought them there, and Hall, as well as Mario Murphy and Aaron Turner, exited the vehicle with the equipment. They went through the back window, which was left unlocked.
It was Robin who had arranged that for the entry for the assailants.
Michael tells detectives he waited in the car while the murder took place.
He just stayed in the car the whole time and drove them back to, I believe it was Gary Hinojosa's place.
Armed with this new information, police work quickly to track down the 3 alleged accomplices.
Mario had moved in with Aaron. We located both of them. We transported them to police headquarters.
We put a couple of officers, detectives, surveilling the apartment or their house where Gary resided so they could arrest Jamie when he arrived home. And when he arrived home, they arrested him, brought him in, and interviewed him.
I believe they were all being interrogated at the same time. And eventually they all just toppled like dominoes.
One by one, each of the three co-conspirators corroborates Michael and Tina's allegations that Robin and Gary were the crime's true masterminds.
Gary and Robin had hired Mario to do the killing and told him that they will pay him $5,000 for the killing, that she would receive $100,000 from her husband's military life insurance policy, and then he would get paid from that.
The accomplices also elaborate on the horrific details surrounding James Radcliffe's death.
Mario Murphy said that Aaron Turner was the first one to hit him, and then when Aaron Turner hit him in the head, he hit him so hard the whole bed shook.
Jamie Hall held a flashlight on James as he lay sleeping unconscious, while Aaron Turner and Mario Murphy took turns beating and stabbing James while he lay unconscious.
After they finished beating him and stabbing him, they left the bedroom and came down to the living room where Robin Radcliffe was waiting and pointed out the VCR for them to take. It was part of the fraudulent burglary they were trying to stage. And so they did. And they left with that in a duffel bag and exited the apartment.
Got in the car, driven again by Michael, and returned to Gary's home.
Mr. Radcliffe, a man who served his country, he didn't stand a chance. He was asleep in bed. He couldn't even fight for himself. To carry out a plan like this is just diabolical, just flat out evil.
Police immediately issue arrest warrants for the alleged killer couple.
I had been surveilling the home, and I knew that Robin was at the home, and I went up to arrest her. She asked if she could make a phone call. She called Gary, and the person that answered said that Gary couldn't talk because he was being arrested.
While Robin maintains her innocence, Gary decides to offer a full confession to the press from jail.
Gary Hinojosa was in love, and he wanted to talk to me because he wanted to find out how Robin was doing. He wanted me to tell Robin that he loved her, and he also wants to rationalize what he's done. And so he says, I wanted to protect, the woman that I wanted to be my wife, I wanted to protect my baby. There's a reason, there's a good reason why I hired these people to kill James Radcliffe. From Gary's perspective, what drove the killing was James's treatment of his wife, Robin. According to Gary, it was an abusive relationship.
Virginia Beach police have indicted 6 people for the murder of James Radcliffe, his wife, Robin Radcliffe, her lover, Gary Hinojosa, and the 4 men who carried out the attack, including Robin's son-in-law, Michael Bourne. Based on her cooperation, Robin's daughter, Tina Bourne, has not been charged. Gary claims that he orchestrated the murder-for-hire plot in order to save Robin from an abusive relationship.
He did say that he had masterminded it, but he'd also said that he was just sitting at home crying, and his buddy Mario shows up, and Mario gets incensed by the fact that James is beating Robin. Mario hates men who beat their wives, and Mario was the one who said, we gotta get this guy. We gotta save Robin.
But detectives know there is no evidence to support Gary's claims that James was ever abusive to Robin.
James would have never hit a woman. He was not that type of man. Bald-faced lie. She was just manipulating people to get what she wanted.
Robin had definitely some degree of avarice. She was aware of the death benefit for a military person. I think that's what motivated her.
I think that Gary's motivation truly was his love for Robin. He was very emotional, a romantic, as ironic as that sounds. And I think he wanted a life with her. And the only way he knew to get it was to get James out of the way.
Robin and James could have gotten divorced, and she and Gary could have been a couple and raised their child. But that wasn't enough. They wanted James's insurance money. Gary and Robin reached out and incorporated young men to get involved in their conspiracy. Each of those young men made a choice to get involved. But the genesis of the entire depravity and violence began with Gary and Robin.
In the fall of 1992, Gary Hinojosa, Michael Bourne, Aaron Turner, and Jamie Hall each plead guilty to first-degree murder and are sentenced to life in prison.
Mario Murphy was charged with capital murder for hire, and the judge sentenced him to death.
6 people arrested. 5 of them pled guilty. Robin was the only one who went to trial. In my mind, she was the most culpable.
By the time Robin went to trial, she had given birth to Gary's baby. And the baby was being cared for by family members.
In February 1993, Robin Radcliffe pleads not guilty by reason of insanity.
A lot of the trial was back and forth with different psychiatrists. The defense was saying she had multiple personalities. The prosecution was, no, she is a cold, calculated murderer.
The question is, did the individual know the difference between right and wrong? Number one, and if so, could she control her behavior?
At trial, prosecutors used Robin's blood-soaked nightgown to prove that Robin knew exactly what she was doing the night her husband was murdered.
According to our expert witness, it wasn't blood spatter. It was transfer blood stains, which were consistent with her getting back in the bed with James and making sure that his blood, as he's losing life, is seeping onto her nightgown.
And rolled around in his blood to make it look like she was in the bed when he was attacked. That blew everybody's mind. We couldn't wrap our heads around, how could you be so callous?
On February 17th, 1993, a jury finds Robin Radcliffe guilty of capital murder and conspiracy to commit capital murder. She is sentenced to life in prison.
It was such a relief when they came in with the guilty verdict. It was like the world had been lifted off my shoulders. Yes, there's finally going to be justice for James.
She was a spider woman. She got all these people caught up in her web of lies, secrets, and deceit. And it ended up in murder. And it's a sad thing that she destroyed all of these lives just for her own benefit.
I mean, I'm still angry. I mean, God says you're supposed to forgive everybody, but I don't think I can ever forgive them. I mean, they took someone near to me away.
I always wonder if he was still alive, I really think we would have been back together as a family. And he would have got to follow his dream of being a chef. I wish that we could have had more happy memories with James. But Robin ruined that.